So just like you always have in the past, when you get into a custom narrative from your Cycle Pages page, you'll click the Edit button, or you'll add a new one from the bottom, and then click Edit. Once you're inside that custom narrative page, you're going to see, as always, that info instruction text where you can add any of that kind of directive language. And as always, you can opt to show that on the PDF or not. And just remember that makes it show up in that HTML PDF preview and not just online in the read-write form to your applicants. But those have always been there. What you're going to see new now is just beneath that, this new custom narrative setting. And it's just this little space where if you've got an existing application with existing custom narratives, this will be set to no. And if you start a new cycle and add a custom narrative, by default, it will be set to no. So if you don't want to use this tool, you don't have to, and you can really just disregard and just move right on down to the question adder tool and start building out your page like always. But if you want to use this new tool, the first thing you're going to do is set this to yes. And then suddenly you're going to see this second option where you have the ability to select the type of number you want to create and then set those numbers. So you can either do a range, a minimum, a maximum, or exactly, and range, just as it seems, is going to give you both a minimum and a maximum. If you choose minimum, you're basically telling the system the applicant has to submit this set of questions that's built down below X time, however many you enter in the minimum. And then that's going to go up to 50 by default. If you want to change that number, you can do that with the GoSmart team, but by default, it's going to be 50 on that max end. So regardless of what number you put in here, your applicant's going to see this number through 50. If you want to set a maximum instead and say they could submit as few as 0, but as many as X, then you would choose maximum and then put your maximum number in there. And then finally, you can set an exact number. So maybe you've set up this board contact list and you know that you want exactly 10 from each applicant. Then you might select exactly and type 10 in here. Whatever type of set you select and whatever number you settle on, let's do a range from 1 to 3 for this example, you can then determine if these responses that your applicants give you are going to show up on that PDF as well. So even if you don't opt to include them on the PDF, you can always pull that data in a custom report or in a new multi-submission report that we'll look at in a little bit. But for the first couple times you use this, you might want to include it on that PDF form. So go ahead and check that box and then you'll click update. Then just like you always do, you're going to build your page, only now you're going to consider your page a single set. So maybe your set is 5 contact questions about your board list. You don't want to include that. You won't be able to include that on a larger page where maybe you're asking additional board information. So you'd have to create another page where maybe you're saying, tell us about the board makeup, your demographics of your board, but then you'll want to create this separate page if you want to ask for board contact information using the multi-submission tool. So in this example, we've created a bunch of questions that get down to each board member who we want to ask about, and then we're going to see what that looks like to the applicant. So if we head over to the applicant portal, they're going to start on their current programs and applications like always. They're going to find that application cycle, and then they're going to work on that application form. So to the applicant, the new piece that's going to start to show up to them, as I said, they're always going to see that info instruction text that you included in the past, but now they're going to see this new custom narrative settings section, and it's going to pull in the settings that you create on the back end. So it's going to create this narrative around just those little settings that you made. So for this example, we selected range, and so it's automatically going to include this language we see here, that this page accepts multiple answer sets. You've provided 0 because we've never filled this out before. You can provide, or you must provide at least 1, and you cannot exceed 3. And then there's this little directive that just lets them know how to use this page. And they use this page by completing the form as comprehensive as they'd like, including required items that you set to required, meaning that they can't complete a set without actually responding to required questions still. But they'll complete the form as much as they're able to. They'll click save, and then they'll see that their saved form is available, and then this form is once again clean, so they can fill it out for their next possible set. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to skip this question for just a second to show you what that might look like if I go to try to submit. But let's go ahead and answer all the other questions. So once I save my work there, you're going to see the page regenerates like it always does when an applicant saves a page. But now I've got this new setup here. I can click on it and it'll replace all those answers back in these fields so that I can review or edit if I need to. I can easily delete that set, or I can go on to work on my second set. Or if I only wanted to do one and you as the admin is allowing me to submit 1 to 3, I could go on to submit. But I'm going to be met with this required question error, just like I would have on a regular custom narrative page, and it's going to direct me right back to that required response. So I'll know to find this question with an asterisk. I'll respond to it. I'm going to save my work again. And then now let's say, now that I'm back here, I do realize that I have another board member to tell folks about. So I'm going to enter her information as well. But I actually don't have anything to upload for her. And I do just need to say when she started. And then because that upload file field isn't required, I still should be able to submit without responding to that question. And it'll still include my 2 sets. And just to show you, if I wanted to go back to that set, if I clicked on answer set 2, it's going to fill in those fields again. So I can come back and say, oh, that's not what I meant to type. I can then go on to submit and I'll see that I'm able to submit, but first I want to take a peek at what it's going to look like to the admin and to the panelists. So as always, it's going to include that profile. This particular example included a letter of intent that's going to be generated into the PDF, which is why we're seeing that there. And then I'm going to see this page, and unlike in the past when your custom narrative would show up with just that single set of questions, now it's going to show each time the applicant responded to that form. So I've got my first set here, then my second set here. If I had filled out a third, it would be down below. So it makes it really easy for the admin, for you to review your applicants' responses, and it's really clean for your panelists as well. If you opted not to include these responses here, maybe you knew that it was going to be so lengthy that it wasn't the type of information that your panelists needed, but you needed to collect it, you could opt to leave all of this information off the PDF, and then you can still pull it in a report so that you can make use of the data that you've collected. Now if we head back, we'll see that just like usual, they can submit. And per usual, they're just going to be in the received status, and then they can move forward when you deem them worthy.